Mr. Wheatley, of course, is not only the head of the Boys Home, but is a former Boys Home graduate and a graduate of VMI and a Marine. Now, I've always been instructed, especially my brother-in-law, who is retired. We always refer to Marines in the present tense. They're never a former Marine. So he is a Marine, and of course the head of the Boys Home, and has a very, very storied history there. And there was just one thing I wanted to share before I turn over to him, and I was really touched by this when I read it on the Boys Home website, and describing the Boys Home. He says, the Boys Home is more than a place to live, it's a place to grow. A successful man has to start somewhere, and all successful men were once boys, but not all boys become successful men. Sometimes they're missing positive role models or a supportive quality of life. So we provide both, and successful men are the result. Men who will take care of their families, men who will contribute their gifts, and men who will be role models for the next generation of men. At Boys Home of Virginia, we show our boys that each day is a step towards that success. As Mr. Wheatley comes, I want all to thank him for coming and hearing about the Boys Home, both in the past and the future of the Boys Home. Thank you, Mr.
When you have knowledgeable PR folks like Elaine and group from VCU had helped us put together the rebranding material, you kind of come off like a genius. But most of those words, even though I did end up saying them, I didn't start out saying them. I started out saying a lot of stuff, which most folks that know me, you give me a chance to talk about Boys Home, and I can talk for a long, long time without pausing sometimes. So you'll have to, whoever's keeping the clock will have to wave at me or something to let me know when it's time to go on. Over here on the table, and excuse me, I'm really fighting some sinus issues right now, and yesterday I couldn't even talk, so today I can at least talk. Over here we put down some stuff. I do a lot of presentation at churches, and this is a Boys Home prayer card. And we asked our young men if they would like to be prayed for, and if they tell us yes, then we will ask them what, and then we'll put that together, and this is their prayer. And I take these to churches because church folks have a lot of prayer change, a lot of discipline, prayer discipline, and so they get a chance to see a picture of one of our young men and see what they're being prayed for, what they want to be prayed for, and get a chance to include that if they choose to do so. So those are over there, and there's a variety of them. Then we're having a church day on April the 30th, and it's a good time to come out, get a nice tour of the place, have lunch with the boys, and get a little question and answer, and then we'll close off in the chapel. So it'll be a nice day for you if you've got an interest in learning a little bit more about Boys Home and seeing where we are right now. That's a good place. And this is the latest brochure that we have. It's kind of hard to keep these things updated. This is actually our class of 2017. So you'll be able to see mostly new stuff if you want to take a look at that. Last time I was here, I told the story about a boy, and I don't want to repeat myself, so I won't tell the whole story, but I will tell you that the story about a boy I started using because it's a lot easier for me to talk about myself and what brought me to Boys Home than it is for me to talk about some of the other guys. I have to be conscious of their issues and what they may or may not. I don't really enjoy talking about them. So what I do is I try to tell my story to kind of illustrate what Boys Home is all about, because it is what Boys Home is all about. What helped me continues to help young men all the time. But I will tell you that I was born in southwestern Virginia, Coalfields. I ended up at Boys Home as a 12-year-old after I became award of the state, and I could not stay in a foster home setting they placed me in. We went to, when you became a ward of the state, you were sent to Richmond, and when you got to Richmond, they did what was called an evaluation of you. They had what's called Richmond Study Home for White Boys. They had 2 different facilities that they used. For the males, they had a single facility they used for Bon Air. At Bon Air for the girls. So you got sent there and you got evaluated, and then they placed you somewhere, either in juvenile detention or juvenile prison at that time at Beaumont, or they would put you in foster care in some capacity. So after they finished up with me, they didn't think I was bad enough yet to go to Beaumont. So they placed me in a foster home, and that did not last very long at all. Now, the place I grew up in was very, very small. I was in a country school, must have been 4 or 5 grades in there, mixed classes, no running water. We brought our water in from a spring close to where the school was, and the bathrooms were outside, and we heated with coal. So when I got to boys' home as a 12-year-old, after a stop, 3-day stop, 2-day stop at a foster home, I ended up at boys' home. So when I got to boys' home, we had a teacher there named Elizabeth Eccles. She was a reading evaluator. And all the boys, when they came to boys' home at that time, were actually evaluated for their reading level. We've been doing that pretty regular since school started up there in 2001. But what we would do is, if you either signed in the morning or the afternoon. If you were assigned in the morning, you go to reading evaluation and or reading classes in the morning, and then you walk down to the bottom of the hill where there was a country school. It was called Boys Home School by most people that knew it, but it was little school to those of us that were at Boys Home. They told us the name of the place was Little School, so we called it Little School. And you go down there and you'd spend the time with her to be evaluated and or get reading lessons. We never did anything other than the reading that I can recall to really evaluate whether or not you were ready for school or whether you need some extra help. Then you would go on into the school system, public school system, with wherever you were, whatever grade you were placed in. It really didn't matter if you were reading on like a 2.5 grades behind your placement. You still went to the grades you were in, you just got extra help in reading. And so we made it through the school system. Some of us okay, some of us not so okay. But the things that we did, we got very involved in sports. We got very involved in a lot of outdoor activities, scouts, things like that. That gave us confidence in what we were doing. It gave us a sense of belonging. When I was attending public school, I can remember many of the guys from Boys Home struggling, primarily because they didn't know basic math, and primarily because they really did not read at a high enough level to attend school and be very successful at it. We got through school, just like everybody else at that time frame, and we looked at, most of the ones there were looking at the military and or a job of some kind. So there was not a great emphasis on trying to catch the kids up. Pete Dimmick, who was quite a star around here, some of you all may know about him, he used to get me up after bedtime to help him with his Algebra 1 class, because I was fairly good at math. He had flunked Algebra 1 twice. And he was working on his 3rd year of Algebra 1, and he expected to go to college on a football scholarship, which he did. And so he'd get me up, and then I would help him with his homework. and so he's a really good example of a young man that really had struggled, with some of the academic classes, but yet went on and had a very successful life. So there were mechanisms in place, there were things you could do back in school and those kinds of things. You get through school and you could still be successful because you had a lot of avenues open to you. And as time went on, Boys Home put in place more and more support activities. try to help the young men actually learn to get to the place to where they could perform in the academic classes at a high enough level. When I got back there, we had a special ed class on campus with a special ed teacher. And I didn't think that was appropriate for the young men who were in there, because their peers were not in special ed classes. Their peers were at that time mainstream, and they were actually going to school with everyone else. And so I slowly shut that school down and closed it, so that the guys could get as much of an opportunity to experience life as possible. We were able to, we started out, when I got the two boys home, way back when, we went to Covington High School, because the county school systems were spotted all over the place. In 1963, when the school merged, the Boys Home boys left Covington High School and went to Allegheny County High School, along with 5 other schools that really shut down and sent the students there. And we didn't feel isolated, we didn't feel out of place, because we were just another group of kids there. And so we had a number of young men who really got active in the school setting, became officers of the different clubs, even some class officers in the time frame that I was there. So public school was a big part of our life, and it really helped us again grow in confidence and move in a good direction. Now, it might sound like, now that we are a accredited independent school, it sounds like maybe I didn't learn those lessons too well. I've been accused of that in a number of different ways, but things changed. Young men coming to us continue to be behind. I came in 1959 as a 12-year-old. Boys Home had run a study in 1958 of all the young men, and they were 2.5 to 4 years behind was the range in reading and arithmetic when they did this study. And every campaign that we had, going back to the 1950 campaign, was really talked about having a school where young men could catch up and then would join the school system in a way that they would have a much higher chance for success. I got back there in 1985, 58 to 85. We were doing, pretty soon after I got there, we were doing evaluations on all the young kids, all the young men that came to Boys Home. We started doing the same kind of evaluation that had been done in 1958. We looked at them for the reading scores, math scores, etc. And we did them on every kid coming through the door. And we learned again, the boys coming to Boys Home remain 2.5 to 4 years behind academically. And so soon after we got that information, we began to put in place mechanisms to help them catch up. We had classes during the day. I read the regulations, Department of Education regulations wrong, probably because I wanted to. And so we actually put our kids in a school on campus, not accredited, like homeschooling. We had about 6 kids. We purchased materials from homeschooling networks, and we put them in school on campus. Then here comes licensing, Department of Social Services licensing, not DOE licensing. And they say, you can't do that. I said, why not? And they said, you're not our parent. I said, we have a contract that says we can make education decisions for them. Our decision is, they're not ready for public school, we'd already doing this. Well, they pretty quickly shut me down. And so we had to close that school. And so we were left without a mechanism to really start catching these kids up and put them where they need to be. So next thing we did was we had a campaign called the Second Century Campaign. We really put a lot of study into it from 1992 to 1996 when we adopted that Second Century Campaign. And that campaign had in it a school and elements of a school. We built a school building. And then in 2001, we actually started putting kids in school on our campus under a program called Homebound Instruction, which was approved by the local superintendent. Well, we chugged along, as they say, fat, dumb, and happy, until 3 years ago, we had the licensing specialists come in, or the license and evaluators came in to see us. And we were running 2 schools. Our elementary school and our middle school was actually under a license from Virginia Association of Individual Specialized Education Facilities, something like it. They said we actually had a license from them, but we did not have any children on campus in there. We had decided that the best thing for our younger kids was to put them in school at Callahan, and we'd bring them back from there, and we would do remediation with them. So they were going to Callahan, and they were coming back to the campus and going through. Teresa was part of this. And they were going to school again. We come home, give them a snack, and then we put them back in school, trying to get them caught up, trying to get them where they needed to be. Well, we got a little mixed up in, the people that came got a little mixed up in what they would look at and what they weren't to look at, and they started talking about our homebound section, which was only for high school kids. When they started talking about that, they went reserved, and they really came down hard on the Allegheny public school system because they had allowed us to operate under regulations that were inappropriate. Homebound instruction is for a medical reason, get over an operation, something like that. So they pulled that from us. That left us with only one mechanism that we could use, and that was called distance learning. And so we moved from homebound instruction to distance learning. And again, even with that, we were basically running a school anyway. And we were losing bus time, and our kids were in classes, still in some classes that they really were not prepared to operate in. So when we started our Journey Continues, which was the follow-up campaign, and we started working with that and looking at that and studying that, we then realized that the only way we would actually be able to serve the total population was if we became an independent school. So it just kind of rolled along, and then the school year just completed was kind of our trial period. All of our children who were in middle school through high school were distance learning students. Everyone below in elementary was going through our license that we have reactivated through VSEF. So our kids were all on campus, all being educated. When we decided that, if we're going to go this way, we might as well have the whole school. That way, took an onus, whatever happened then was not Allegheny County's issue, would not be Allegheny County's issue, it would be Boys Home's issue. So we made the decision, extended our VSEF accreditation to include high school and middle school, and then started teaching our kids on campus this past year. That's an evolution of education. It's also, it also talks a lot to what our focus has been now going on over a century. And it is that we need to educate these kids so that when they leave us, they'll be in a position to hold a job, just as you so elegantly read it, that they can support their families. They can be successful wherever they were. And I say, the way I put it is, they're contributors to wherever they end up at. They are not takers from it. So that they are able to pay their taxes, they're able to support their family, they're able to do the things that will help them be successful where they are. Our first semester really has shown that the small class sizes, the teach teaching them where they are performing at. Lots of teacher interaction with them. And the additional things that we're able to put in to prep them for the world outside of school. We do trades, we do recreation, we do a lot of things throughout the day. Our kids will start school this semester, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll end at 6 o'clock.